Shalom and welcome to another Chamor podcast from Bei Abedan, teaching Noahide Judaism for Messianic Hebrews. Messianic Hebrews being the broadest term possible to cover all people who believe that Jesus of Nazareth is, as described in the New Testament, is the Messiah for themselves and for the nations. And that means Christians, Muslims, it can be Hindus who believe that Jesus is the Messiah, who accept Jesus as Lord. And it also includes, of course, those people who call themselves Messianic Jews. We say to them, stop calling yourselves Jews, call yourselves Hebrews only. Stop calling yourselves Jews because only the scribes and the Pharisees have the right to designate who is and who isn't a Jew. So today I'm going to be talking about Esau's blessing in Genesis chapter 27, verses 39 to 40. The blessing very simply says, behold your dwelling place. Now, this is very interesting. Let's have a look at this. I was about to start it simply, but we have actually got a contradiction between the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible in the translations here. So let's have a look at the contradiction. First of all, the Christian Bible's translations, English Standard Version, Berean Standard Bible, King James Bible. Let's have a look. It says, your dwelling place shall be away from the fatness of the earth. Again, it says, shall be away from the riches. And here we have, thy dwelling place shall be the fatness of the earth. King James. It's very different, isn't it? It's extremely different. Away from or shall be. But the answer, of course, is given in the Jewish interpretation. And it says very clearly, behold, your dwelling place shall be the fat places of the earth. So not away from. So again, we got to burn these translations. We have to burn the Berean Study Bible. We have to burn the New Living Translation. We have to burn the New International Version. All these, of course, putting interpolations in there which do not belong. They are not in the Hebrew, and they are not in the translation provided by the scribes and the Pharisees. So the Hebrew here says, behold, the fatness of the earth shall be your dwelling, and the dew of heaven from above. So there's absolutely no indication at all whatsoever that Esau's dwelling shall be away from. In fact, the blessing is very clear that he shall get the fat places of the earth. And the translation has a commentary, of course. We have the commentary given here by Rashi, which we follow. And this is saying, Ze Italia shel Yoan, which means the parts of Italy which belong to Greece. So, at the time that Rashi was alive, just so you know, Rashi is supposed to have been around the year 1040 until 1105. That's supposed to be the time that he was living. And at that time, the parts of Italy which belonged to Greece were getting fewer and fewer. But we should probably look at the definition of Byzantine Italy, because it's something which is when Rashi says it's mentioned actually in here. It's actually mentioned. He says the parts of Italy that belong to Greece, as described in Genesis Rabbah 67, verse 6. So that's before Rashi, and so we should look at Byzantine Italy to see what that means. So Byzantine Italy, once upon a time, was a large amount of Italy. That was the you can see these parts in yellow here. This was the prefectura of Italy, or the prefecture of Italy. All of these areas were Edom, according to Rashi. Then as time went by, the amount of land which Edom had, I suppose, may have been reduced to the exarchate of Ravenna, which has got less of the land, which belongs to the Byzantine Empire, and then a little bit less, the theme of Sicily. Then it reduces to the theme of Sicily. This is all that's left. Ravenna, the tips of the toes, Sicily, Corsica. And then as time goes by, it gets even smaller, the theme of Lombardia. And that is just at the tip of the boot there. And then we have Catepenate of Italy. which is really just the boot there. So it's getting less and less as time goes by, but essentially we get the idea that he's saying something to do with Greek Rome. Okay, that's another way of looking at it. Greek Rome or Greek Italy, Italian Greece, if you want to look at it that way. It's another way of looking at it is to regard it as a reference to the sort of, what might I say, the Western Rite Orthodoxy. The idea that there are Western Christians who are Orthodox Christians. There's another way of looking at it. These people are the true representatives of Edom. But the Edom we're talking about here, in the one which the blessing is referring to, is the good Edom. It says the full blessing is that you shall, your dwelling place shall be away from the, in the English translations that we were using, the dwelling place should be away from the riches of the land. But I mean, we understand that this is actually saying your dwelling place shall be the fatness of the land, as it says in the King James Version. So we can find the blessing there. Behold, thy dwelling place shall be the fatness of the earth and the dew of the heaven from above. And by thy sword thou shalt live, and thou shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. This is another part we should have a look at. The blessing means this is a good thing. This is good things which are coming to Esau. So he's going to get the fatness of the land, a land with good dew, good rainfall, good produce, a nice part of Italy. And by your sword you shall live, and your brother you shall ta'abod. It's interesting. You shall serve, but it also means you shall worship. And it shall come to pass when you become restless that you shall break his yoke from your neck. So the interpretation is that this is a spiritual Esau we're talking about, the head of Esau. The story of Esau is that when he was how was he killed? When Jacob was brought to be buried in the tomb of the patriarchs, Esau is supposed to have been incited by his children to resist the burial of his brother at the tomb, and as a result ended up being killed himself in a battle which ensued, where the son of Dan, called Hushiel, struck off his head. Now the head was buried in the tomb, and the rest of the body was left outside in the field. The understanding of this is that the head of Esau is spiritual, is the spiritual part of Esau, which gets the blessing, inherits the blessing, and gets a place in the world to come. So we're talking about spiritual Esau here. Now, spiritual Esau says that spiritual Esau shall live by the sword and shall live by the sword and shall serve or worship his brother. His brother, of course, is Jacob or Israel. And the interpretations of the rabbis, the scribes and the Pharisees throughout the generations, is that this refers to the cross, the sword that Esau lives by is the cross, or the New Testament is the sword. The words of God are the sword. They are the iron rod, a sword, which goes out of the mouth of the one riding on the horse, is a sword, the word of God. So the word of God, which is Esau's word of God, means the blessings, or the word which was revealed specifically for Esau is the New Testament. And it can also refer to the sword is like a cross. It's got a blade and a handle, and it's got the hilt. And this is looking like a cross. So you shall live by the cross, and also meaning you shall live by the Christian doctrine. Okay, you shall live by the Christian faith. You shall live by the New Testament. And your brother you shall worship means you shall worship Jesus. Jesus is a Jew, Jesus is Israel, Jesus is Jacob, therefore worshipping Jesus is also part of the blessing. And if Jesus said, of course, that you shall do everything that the scribes and Pharisees say, which is what you've got to do if you worship Jesus. But it says the blessing of Isaac to Esau is that if you become restless, in other words, if you, the spiritual Esau, find that your brother is not being spiritual, you can break his yoke from your neck. You don't have to obey them when they are being wicked, when they're being violent or starting to behave like you. If they are starting to behave in a wrong way, you can break the yoke from your neck. Meaning Jesus' command to you to obey the scribes and the Pharisees and do as they say, and to listen to them, do everything they say, stands only for the righteous spiritual scribes and Pharisees who are speaking things in a spiritual way which spiritual Esau, the head of Esau, likes. But if the head of Esau, which is the spiritual part of Esau, is not happy with the materialistic way of living that Jacob takes, then spiritual Esau can break away from any materialistic interpretations of the Torah, which they're told. Okay, so this is quite interesting. And so that's the way you are supposed to interpret this. So the blessing is there for Esau to be spiritual. Esau, of course, becomes Edom. Edom, symbol of Rome. Rome, as interpreted by Rashi, meaning really only those Orthodox Christian type Romans, rather than the lapsed Romans which were taking over in the time of Rashi. Remember, Rashi lived through the Great Schism. And in the schism, some people took the side of the Byzantine Empire, and some people took the side of the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican. And Rashi is living at that time, and he's saying not, when he says Edom, he's specifying, he's making it very clear he doesn't mean those who have abandoned the Byzantine faith. So the Byzantine faith is very important from Rashi's point of view in trying to understand who is Edom. So if you're a Protestant and you're trying to go back to your roots and you're thinking about going back to the Roman Catholic Church, don't. If you want to follow the Byzantine advice, maybe you should explore the Byzantine. If you want to follow Rashi's advice, maybe you should explore the Byzantine Church instead. And then that might be, pointing you in the right direction, but certainly not if you are following Rashi, you certainly should not just go for the simple, straightforward Vatican. Maybe a Latin rite which is in harmony or in communion with the Byzantine Church might be better. I'm not telling you that you should become Byzantine Orthodox Christians, but that there is something more true about the Byzantine Orthodox way. And what could it be, I wonder, that the Byzantine Orthodox Greek Christians have, which the Roman Catholics who have pulled away from Greece don't have? And it's been a very interesting discovery for me to find out when I was looking at the schism and how it affected Hungary before the schism, the Great Schism of the 1050s. Hungary was really the sort of border between the Roman, Western, Latin world and the Greek world. And it was interesting to see how they responded to the schism. Before the schism, Hungary was Sabbath observant. They used to keep the Sabbath holy. And then after the schism, Hungary cracked down on Sabbath observance and stamped it out. They totally stamped out Sabbath observance because they went with the Latin Roman Catholic Vatican Church. Byzantine Christians, even today, still do respect and observe and honor the Sabbath day, the seventh day, as a holy day. So that's the key. That's the key which Rashi is alluding to here. If you're Edom and you keep the seventh day holy, if you're a seventh day observant Christian, seventh day Baptist, seventh day Anabaptist, seventh day Moravian, seventh day Adventist, or you're an Orthodox Christian who still keeps holy the Sabbath day, the seventh day, and you regard it as a holy day, then God bless you, you're under the spiritual head of Edom, which is regarded in Orthodox Judaism as being our brother. We regard, that means the Jews regard the head, the spiritual head of Esau, to be our brother, our spiritual brother, who gains a place in the world to come. But if you are of the body which is left out of the tomb, then you're of the dross, the trash, which is going to be fed to the birds of prey, and the beasts of the field will eat all the bones. Eat all the flesh of the bones and leave only the dry bones left. That part is not our brother. That part has to be essentially consumed. It has to be consumed, and then maybe it can come into the tomb at a later date. According to some midrashim, they say that those bones, once they are dried by the sun and all the flesh has been torn from them, those bones also manage to gain a place in the world to come, according to some midrashim. But the part which is absolutely, totally certain, which does gain a place in the world to come, which is our brother, which is spiritual and recognized and holy, is Edom's head, Esau's head. So Esau's head is what you want to be. And Esau's head, according to Rashi there, means the Sabbath observant Christians, the Byzantine Romans at the very least. That was Rashi was alluding to. So you can't kick the Sabbath if you are going to have a place in the world to come. At the end of the day, you definitely need to be keeping holy the Sabbath day. And you can keep the holy Sabbath day very simply by trying to be tahor. You can eat pork and have shellfish all week, but please, on the Sabbath day, if you want to have a place in the world to come, if you want to keep that blessing which is applying to you, then avoid those things on Sabbath day. Be tahor, have a bath, have a wash on Friday night, have a tahor, holy Sabbath, keep holy the Sabbath in the morning, at the very least, and then you've sort of ticked the box there and kept holy the Sabbath day, and you are just inside of the head of Edom, which means that you get your place in the world to come. You are holy, you are a brother to Israel, and you're doing the right thing. And you have the right, if you are that head, if you're that spiritual head, you have the right to criticize Israel when they don't behave so spiritually as they should do. So that's a pretty good right. You've got that right. That's a blessing given to you in the Torah. And no Orthodox Jew denies this. This is something which is special for you. So God bless you if you have become beheaded for the testimony of Jesus. That means if you've left behind the body and become beheaded for the testimony of Jesus, you've become Esau's head. God bless you. Then you have a place in the world to come. Now, I was speaking with Rabbi Ben Abrahamson about this recently, and he said that this also refers to the separation of church and state. The separation of church and state being the beheading of Esau. So the church, the spiritual, when the spiritual is separated from the state, so that the state is no longer saying we are a Christian country and we're doing things in the name of God and we're going on a crusade and we're promoting Christian. When the state is secular, okay, and no longer claiming to be Esau, that's when the church has been separated from the state, and the church then can be free to be totally pure. It can be as long as it's given up politics, it can be free to be totally pure. So Esau should be non-political in that sense. You have to just follow the New Testament. Non-political because politics doesn't allow you to do what you're supposed to do according to the New Testament. New Testament says you have to hold all things in common. You have to basically be a communist. In fact, it's quite interesting because Edom means red. And if you are a red Christian, then that's fine. You're a socialist Christian, a red Christian, you're fine. That's okay, as long as you are spiritual. So you can be communist, you can be socialist, as long as you believe in God. So a socialist, God-fearing Christian, which is actually what we end up with a lot of people in the former Soviet Union, former communist bloc Christians, still very socialist in their mentality, but believing in God and having a strong faith. That kind of Christian who is, of course, separated from politics because politics has left behind communism. It's turned its back on it, trying to put the nail in the coffin of communism, put a stake through its heart, and shoot a silver bullet in it to make sure it stays dead. Be careful, the resurrection is coming. That sort of Christian is considered to be the spiritual beheaded Edom, the one whose head has his place in the world to come. So separation of church and state is a very important thing, and there are Christians who have always lived like that. Of course, the Anabaptists, Mennonites, have always been, separating church and state, and they are also regarded as spiritual and holy Edom from the Orthodox Jewish point of view. So that's really where you want to be. You want to be with that group. You don't want to be with the what we call the Christian nationalist political campaigners who were all, blessing the presidents and praying for them and saying, Donald Trump is the chosen vessel, or even if there were some crazy nut jobs who would say that President Biden is the chosen vessel, or whoever is the chosen vessel, those people are not beheaded Esau. Okay, they're not beheaded. They're still unspiritual. In order to become beheaded Esau, you have to be totally spiritual. So totally spiritual, the way forward, living by the New Testament as your constitution. This is living by your sword. Your sword is the New Testament. This is what you live by. You worship Jesus, and you obey the Pharisees. You obey the scribes and the Pharisees, unless the scribes and the Pharisees abandon spiritual way and start behaving like the other nations. Then you can throw the yoke from off your neck, and you can criticize and shout and scream at Netanyahu, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the secular, state of Israel. You can say, no, you are wrong. I am beheaded Esau, and this is my right to criticize you. So enjoy that right. This is what you're supposed to have. This is the blessing which you've been promised. All right, so I wish you all going to have a blessed and holy Sabbath. You will try to keep tahor, be kosher at least one day of the week, just one day a week. And when I say kosher, I don't mean according to the rules of the scribes and the Pharisees. I mean basically just simple rules of purity. Don't eat, consume blood. Don't eat the pork and the rabbit and the camel meat. And don't have the shellfish. Try to have a basic, basically tahor Sabbath, and that's your Hebrew root. As in the Christian faith, you're connected to Edom there. Remember, Edom is the one for whom the blessing was originally intended to be. But when he came, the blessing comes unto his own, Edom, but his own rejected him, did not receive him. And so the one who did receive him, Jacob, got the right to become a son of God, children of God. The Israelites are the children of God. But it's not too late, even though you've missed the blessing, you've turned your back on him when he came the first time around. You do have a chance to receive him still, and to behead yourself, leave behind your secular body, and live in your spiritual head, spiritual mind, and you will gain a place in the world to come and become children of God. So that's really, what it means when Jesus came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. It means he came for Edom. He came for the spiritual head of Edom. That is the church which is separated from the state. And I suppose that's another reason why Rashi is also mentioning the parts of Italy that belong to Greece, because he's saying not those parts of Italy which are under the state of the church state of the Vatican state and church. He's saying no, there has to be a distinction. The religion of Rome cannot be the state of Rome. The religion of Rome has to be separate from the state of Rome in order for Edom to have the blessings. So you will inherit the blessings if you do it that way. So in a sense, Eastern Europe is closer to the mark than Western Europe and the Christianity which comes from Western Europe, with the exception, of course, of the Anabaptists, who have managed to maintain that separation of church and state. So God bless you, all of you Anabaptists out there, and I hope you, and all of you Seventh-day observers who are among the Christian believers, you're doing the right thing, and hopefully you will come to appreciate more of what the scribes and Pharisees have to say. Thank you for a comment from Hitesh here. He says, Shabbat Shalom, Bei Abedan. Do Noahides have to take the bath at night and change clothes, or can they wash their hands and feet with salted water and then take a bath on Saturday morning? If you want to, always we say like the Karaite sort of way, the Sola Scriptura way for observing the law when it comes to doing these things is suitable for Noahides. because it distinguishes you from Orthodox Jews, and you're not supposed to do things the way that the scribes and Pharisees do, according to Orthodox Judaism. So definitely do not follow the way we do things. Don't dip yourself several times, the same number of times that we do in the mikveh. Don't do it that way, but do something simple, the way as described in the Bible, and only take from the scribes and Pharisees when the information given in the Bible is not clear enough. That's how you can show yourself to be a Noahide, rather than somebody who's pretending to be a Jew. Of course, don't call yourself a Jew. So the Bible says that you should do this in the evening, that your wash should be in the evening. So you're not, at the very least, certainly we know that you cannot do this washing to make yourself pure in the morning. So anytime from, say, sunrise to midday, roughly, or 6 a.m. to midday, it's not possible to purify yourself at that time. If you want to purify yourself before sunrise, then that should be all right. We see in the Bible that David did this once, and so he did it in the middle of the night. So you can go and purify yourself in the middle of the night, and it can be early in the morning as long as it's before sunrise. So that's one aspect. Yes, you can take the bath at night or in the middle of the night, as long as it's before sunrise. Okay, so that's the first rule. Now, changing clothes. Best idea is to change clothes, of course. But if you're not in a situation where you can change clothes, you can even just dab your clothes with water. Now, do you have to totally, fully immerse yourself? We have some information from the New Testament where Jesus is washing the feet of his disciples, and Peter says to him, "No, never." And Jesus says, "Well, if I don't wash you, you have nothing in common with me." And then Peter says, very interestingly, very, very important point, he says, "They're not just my feet, but my head and my hands as well." And Jesus says to him, "Well, no, anybody who's taken a bath need only wash his feet." So if you haven't taken a bath, then you need to wash your head and your hands. So therefore, you can do your head and your hands and your feet, and that is sufficient. That should be sufficient. But then, of course, the Torah does say that you do have to wash your clothes as well. So what should you do? And the answer is probably you should just dip your finger in the salt water, the holy water. Holy water is salt water, just in case you didn't know. Dip your finger in salt water and do a sign of a cross. Do a little cross on each of your clothes, on each item of your clothing, your trousers, your dress, your shirt, maybe your socks, whatever you're wearing, and that will be symbolically then cleaned if you haven't got enough water around. So they're symbolically washed. The point is, you want to do a symbolic washing to purify yourself. And doing the symbol is very important because it shows that your body has submitted to your mental intent. All right, that's really important. That you have made your body submit to your mental intention. Your mental intention understands that you are purified, you have been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus, you are spiritual, Edom. Your mind knows all of this, but your body must be caused to submit to what you know in your mind. If you don't make your body submit to what you know in your mind, your body will end up taking over your mind. The head must rule. Okay, the head must rule the body in order for you to be spiritual Esau, or spiritual Edom, right? So you must make your body submit to the mental intention. And that, even just by simply making a little holy water cross on each item of your clothing, is a sign. Washing your hands, your head, and your feet is a sign. These are symbols which show your body is being forced into submission, so that it is your head that rules and it's not your body that rules. Your body doesn't have any submission. Eventually, your head will be ruled by your body, and your intention will be weak. So that's not what we want. We want to strengthen your intention. So yes, you don't have to wash your entire clothes. If you can change your clothes, good. If you're in a situation where you can't change your clothes, then okay, just do what I've suggested. Head, hands, and feet. Remember, when you do your head first, and then your feet, and then your hands, you actually done the sign of the cross again. Again, this is something which is special for Edom. Living by the cross, living by the sword. This is the cross. So touching your head and then your feet and then your arms, you've actually done the sign of the cross. This is where the Catholics got their idea from. They used to use the holy water before, this is salt water, before they go into the church. They used to touch their head and their feet and their arms as well. They did the sign of cross. It sort of degraded into the sign of the cross. But that sign of the cross is the symbol of the ablution, which Peter talks about when he says, well, not just my feet, but my head and my hands as well. Jesus confirms that that is a full ablution, and he says, well, if you've had a bath already, you don't have to. Only if you haven't had a bath, then you have to do your head and your hands and your feet. Therefore, that is considered equivalent to taking the bath. It's the minimum requirement. If you have the advantage that you live by the sea in a nice hot country, then take a dip in the ocean and go fully clothed if you want. Take wash all your clothes with you. So you've done it, and do it in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's a very important thing for you to do. Okay, so that's the blessing of Esau, and explanation for how to do the tahara on the Friday night, preferably, or before the sunrise, before 6 o'clock in the morning on the Sabbath. God bless you all. Take care and have a blessed and holy Shabbat Shalom.